This episode of The Truth in This Art was brought to you by the generous support of the Gutierrez Memorial Fund. Learn more about their mission and their story at gutierrezmemorialfund.com. Also, this season of The Truth in This Art is supported by the Robert W. Deutsch Foundation. Learn more about their mission and their story at rwdfoundation.org. What's shaking, cats and kittens? Rob Lee here with a special message. So from January 17th through January 21st, 2022, there will be a special contest, a partnership, if you will, with the fine folks over there at Sophomore Coffee and The Truth in This Art. The contest will be head over there to Sophomore, buy your favorite drink. Take a picture of that drink, tag me in that picture, and that'll enter you into a contest to get a bag of their delicious beans and a Truth in This Art t-shirt. So you get a win-win. You get something from Rob Lee, you get something from the fine folks at Sophomore, and you get to try a great drink. And on January 20th, now here's the thing, January 20th, head on over to Sophomore and ask for the Rob Lee. It will be on the menu. It will be a special for that day to commemorate your boy's birthday. So head on over to Sophomore, and that's 2023 Maryland Avenue in Baltimore. Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and my next guest is the president and general manager of WYPR in Baltimore and is the chair of the NPR board. Please welcome LaFontaine E. Oliver. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to spend some time talking with you today.
The pleasure is all mine, and I mean that honestly. So I've been reading over your bio information for like the last couple of weeks, like a nerd. But I want to invite you to give those like vital stats. Tell the fine folks about your work and what your work is ultimately about.
Wow. So I'm actually just a career radio guy. My dad worked in radio, and strangely enough, my father's biological father, who he didn't know, we later found he had a stint doing some radio. So it's kind of in my blood. And I've been fortunate enough in my career to do everything from AM and FM commercial radio to I had a stint in satellite radio, public radio. I even had a stint doing some work in television as well. And so sort of media and connecting with audiences sort of runs through my blood and has taken me just lots of places. I've been very fortunate. Everything from, a handful of different music formats to news and information and yeah, so I love it, and I don't know that I could see myself doing anything else.
I love to hear it. I love to hear it as an audiophile and a fan of like folks talking on the radio and delivering like news and things of that sort. Like I said, this is totally a treat for me. And one of the reasons why I got into podcasting. I've been doing this for about 13 years and more to come on that later. So I read that you returned to Baltimore in 2019, and this comes in the fourth quarter of the Trump's administration, where we were bestowed with the erroneous term of like fake news, and journalism, I felt, took a hit. Baltimore's news coverage, from my vantage point, is like tragedy porn followed by sports. And I appreciate your comments on listeners appreciating like intelligent, insightful approaches to news and a discussion of the issues. Since you returned to Baltimore, what's the shift that you've seen in like journalism?
Yeah, that's a really good and a tough question, because in some ways it's been more of the same because of kind of what many of us have been talking about as the market failure that is local journalism and local news. But there are also some bright spots there. I mean, and that's, across platforms, whether it be, in radio or on television or in print or in digital. I mean, there are some folks here in Baltimore that are doing some tremendous work, and I shouldn't leave out and in the podcast space. And so it's a bit of a mixed bag in that some of it is kind of business as usual, as you sort of laid out, and maybe even further deterioration, given kind of what's happening not just in Baltimore but in communities across the country, as it relates to local news and journalism and just the disinvestment that's happening in that, and then the sort of repercussions to that, which is kind of as what you mentioned, the monikers of fake news and the spread of misinformation and disinformation and the proliferation of sort of content that is not well sourced and fact checked, and many of those things. And so again, I'll just say it's a mixed bag. I'm a glass half full kind of guy, so I will say I think there's so much good work happening in Baltimore in the local news and journalism space, but we need more of it to combat the deterioration of local news and journalism, because without it, we don't know how to govern ourselves. We don't know who to vote for. We don't know where to send our kids to school. And in the instance of the health pandemic, I mean, we don't know what to do, as it relates to how we just stay safe. Yeah. If we don't have access to good, sound, reliable information. So
is that, and that actually segues into my next question regarding like the Daily Dose. Was that like the response to that? Because, one of the things that me, from my vantage point, I was just like looking at like, can we get something? Can we get like, look, I'm the president. Here's your, we're going to come in with like a news thing. Like every hour, we're going to preempt your show. Here's the latest and the greatest as we know on this moving target, instead of waiting for the evening when you've been out or whatever. So say a little bit more about that. Was that a response to Daily Dose to like the information about like health and COVID and all of that?
Absolutely. So, I really see the role of not just public broadcasters, but broadcasters in general. We're supposed to be there, for the necessity and of the public, and during times of crisis, and I would say a health pandemic goes into that category. We really need to shift and figure out how we are serving communities and reaching them and making sure that they're getting the information that they need. And while we were doing that on air, I felt like producing a daily podcast would be another way to meet audiences where they are and get them the information in a more sort of encapsulated way, especially when you considered once the stay-at-home orders went into place, lots of folks that were listening to the radio because they were commuting, they were no longer listening to the radio. Radio and commuting goes together like peanut butter and jelly. It's like if you don't have, the commuting, you're not getting those turnstiles moving with people coming in morning drive and afternoon drive, queuing your station and listening. And so part of the thinking was, how do we meet people, whether they're stuck at home, whether they're working, whether they're commuting, and how do we present the information, life-saving information, in a way that they can get it, it's easily digestible, and they can take it with them, and it's there for them every single day. I sort of use the phrase, shifting to this role of being a first informer. Yeah. And so that's exactly why we launched the Daily Dose. The idea was, how can we present something to the people of Baltimore, and maybe on a larger level, the state of the folks in the state of Maryland, information on the state's response to this health pandemic. And it was wildly successful, and I would not have predicted that almost 2 years later we'd still be doing it. But it's taught us how to build and flex some new muscles as it relates to doing a daily podcast, which we'd never done as a station. And so, yeah, it was absolutely out of being there in the convenience and the necessity of the community, with the information that we were going to all need to make sense of, what was going on with COVID.
So, and thank you for that. So in speaking, almost piggybacking, on the notion of success, right? I read in 2020 that WYPR's audience is some high ratings, some increases, demonstrating an appeal for the importance of WYPR's brand of public radio in Baltimore. So what is that brand for those who are undipped, uninitiated, and how does it fit within the Baltimore market?
Yeah, so I think the answer to what is that brand is that it's evolving. As I think all good brands should, especially when sort of faced with seismic changes in the market or in the industry, which I think we're seeing right now. One, because of the market failure in local news and journalism that we talked about. Two, because of this just renaissance of audio that we find ourselves in right now, and then some of the just changing underpinnings of our business models and everything else. So that brand it's really changing. Mm-hmm. But I guess to answer the question directly, I would say the brand is rooted in and sort of undergirded by this idea of free, open, and universal access to well-researched, nuanced, balanced, fair presentation of the news of the day, of some of these sort of content verticals where we can dig a little bit deeper. And then beyond that, bringing diverse perspectives in to help people understand their place in our community and in some ways in our world with everything that's going on. And a lot of that is sort of rooted in what it means to be a local NPR member station, where we sort of hold we hold a lot of those principles very close as it relates to how we serve our audience. Now, how that is sort of growing and evolving and expanding, I would say, is that brand, I think, is undergoing a bit of a refresh in that, I am very much aware that that there is, how do I want to say that there is a perception that, especially with the NPR news, that it is for a particular audience. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the refresh is to sort of explode some of those myths and to do some of the hard work behind improving our content and adding more content and voices and perspectives so that we can be public radio for everyone. Yeah. And so that's a bit of why I say it's sort of an evolving brand, because I think we have a vision for greater community service, and that only comes with having content that continues to push the envelope on reflecting the community that you want to serve. Absolutely,
and I think that. Here, I think in Baltimore, in a lot of places, but I really speak about what's going on here, is authenticity and that credibility thing is very important. And I know when people don't see themselves represented in a way, or people that they know represented in a way, they're less inclined to be like, oh yeah, I look at that as a reliable source. But you start seeing, as I think you're touching on with the refresh and measures to refresh things, and it kind of reaching and showing like what we're doing is indicative of the community that we're ultimately serving, then that instills that confidence and that buy-in, if you will.
Absolutely.
Now, this one right here I thought was kind of funny. I read that you had a successful stint as the general manager at WEAA from 2007 to 2013. I graduated in 2007 from Morgan, and I don't think we crossed paths. But tell me about the experience working in radio at HBCU.
Yeah, it was a wonderful experience. I had the opportunity at WEAA to really spread my wings and experiment and do some things that I think have helped shape the type of leader, media organization leader, and sort of programmatic thinker that I am now. WEAA, of course, is a station that has a storied history and has meant a lot to the community here in Baltimore for quite a long time. And it was really an honor to sit at the helm of that station for, I believe it was 6 years, and to continue to just create powerful radio there. Everything from, many of the local talk and public affairs shows that really get at the root of, some of the local issues that are going on in the community. Some of the jazz programming, really being able to sort of celebrate that genre. Many of the specialty shows that everything from, Africa and world beat to Caribbean to gospel. It's just a rich tapestry of public media broadcast content. We even had the opportunity while I was there, we launched a national show out of WEAA. So for a period of a couple of years, we produced and distributed a talk show with Dr. Michael Eric Dyson. That ended up being run on about a dozen stations across the country, most of them on the campuses of other HBCUs. So I had a great experience running WEAA. I learned a lot and was able to, like I said, really stretch my wings and do some creative things. It was an important part of my career coming out of commercial broadcasting to really sort of bring some of the commercial sensibilities and some of the commercial competitiveness to the public media space in a way that I think helped push WEAA to come out of its comfort zone and to reach an even broader audience in Baltimore.
Yeah, I think that's really great where there's the opportunity to do it. And it's like almost having a bit of a blank canvas in some ways. It's like, yeah, go do it. Someone's doing that. Cool. Yeah, make it happen.
Yeah.
So I think this goes back. This next question kind of goes back a little bit to what you were touching on earlier. And I'm saying this is not exactly what you were saying, but let's talk about assumptions and perception. There's an assumption that Black people don't listen to public radio, or there's a specific type of content that we're interested in. More entertainment, less news. Share 3 illuminations you've learned. I'm sure there are several more, but 3 illuminations you've learned in your over 20-year broadcasting career about like diverse audiences.
Yeah, so I'm glad you bring that up. I think that audiences of color do care about news and information. I've learned that we all sort of we care about our communities. We care about our own safety and our livelihoods. We care about education and how our children are being reared. I mean, we are more alike than we are different, I think. And while I will say that sometimes it takes time for people to sort of age into the demo of kind of public radio news and information. I find that, many people that look like you and I consume and enjoy and rely on, our brand of NPR news and information. And so I don't know what specific examples I would come up with off the top of my head, but I would just say, in my career, even when I was in commercial news. I mean, I cut my teeth, at a Radio 1 station, Kathy Hughes's first station, WOL in Washington, D.C., yeah. A legacy, African-American news and talk station where, that's all we did was we were, speaking directly to the African-American community in the Washington, D.C. area on the issues of the day, the news of the day. And that was a very, very engaged audience. And so I think sometimes we get caught up in the packaging or the marketing or some of these other things. But at the end of the day, I think most of us care about a lot of the same things. And I think it's my job to figure out how to package that in such a way that we reach the broadest audience that we possibly can. I mean, that's why we call it public radio. It's for the public. It's for everybody. Yeah. And I want to be able to reach audiences wherever they are. And the beauty of it is I now no longer have to do that with sort of one terrestrial broadcast stream. I've got, HD sub channels. I've got, podcast. I've got video. I've got things we can do on the website and on social and on digital that can help me to sort of segment out and sort of tailor content a little bit more to sort of meet the unique needs of audiences. But no, I mean, I think increasingly, people of color are finding and sticking with public radio. And so I was happy to hear that, you are also a bit of a public radio fan. So
I am. So I have two more questions before I get into rapid fire. And I purposely didn't send you any rapid fire questions because you think that you were on like you were just going off the top of the dome, but these ones are a little even more top of the dome. I was stalking Instagrams, Twitters, all types of nonsense to come up with these questions. But the last two I'm going to hit you with are, so after reading your bio, I noticed the very impressive track record of being involved in improving several commercial, satellite, and public media initiatives. So tell us about the thinking that kind of goes into those different efforts. I would imagine coming in, you mentioned being a programmatic thinker, right? So coming in, maybe identifying like, this is an issue here, or this is something that could be tweaked. So tell me a little bit more about the thinking that goes into a new position or a new environment, and ultimately it yielding the success that it has.
Yeah, I think it starts with listening. And I think that's one of the things that has helped me to be successful along the way is it's easy to sort of walk into a situation and think, okay, hey, it's time for me to roll up my sleeves and start making changes and getting things done and putting my stamp on things. And sometimes you can come in and you can break things that were working just fine before you got there. And so I think for me, part of, and I do have a bit of a, call it a system. And that system really sort of starts with active listening, not just listening, but active listening, because I really believe that in order to have a positive impact, you have to first really sort of survey the landscape, whether it's internal with your staff, whether it's sort of looking up to whether it's your board of directors or the folks that own your license, out into the community, so that you understand, sort of where's the station or the organization been, where is it right now, before you can even start thinking about charting a course for where it's going in the future. So, a big part of my process sort of starts with a listening tour. It starts with, okay, who are all the people that I can talk to get some insight into sort of those questions about, the past, the present, so that we can then look towards the future. And that really sort of then sets the stage for how you then synthesize what you get from that listening tour into building a plan for yourself and for your staff that will allow you to really get everybody moving in the same direction around some key initiatives. And you don't need a lot of them. I mean, typically, if you can do a really good job at one or two things, you can move the needle. Yeah. And so figuring out what those things are, and then getting some sort of broad agreement around them, and then getting the buy-in of all of the stakeholders, your staff, your board, or your community stakeholders, to sort of move on those things. Those are two of the things that I think are really, really important to my process, is sort of that listening tour, and then synthesizing that information, and then building out a plan. I'm big on plans, and some people sort of scoff at this, idea of strategic plans, and maybe in some ways they've gotten a bad name for good reasons, because they end up sort of, being this sort of thing that sits up on a shelf somewhere. But I've been really successful at putting together strategic plans that are living, breathing scorecards of sorts that allow you to continue to grow and evolve, and to sort of keep yourself and your organization on track for success and for building towards the future. So
I love to hear that. I'm sitting there just like mentally consuming it like it's caramel or something. That's just it's ridiculous over here in my head. So the last question that I had, as far as these main questions, because I can't let you off the hook when it comes to the rapid fire ones, but so tell us your vision ultimately for public media in Baltimore, and touch on the acquisition of WTMD 89.7.
Yeah, so I'll start with the acquisition and say, I feel really fortunate that we were in a position when Towson University was looking to divest themselves, to get out of the business of owning a public radio station, that we were in a position to step in and to be able to take that over, because I think it's a tremendous station, a tremendous resource here in Baltimore, and the last thing I wanted to see was for it to potentially go away or become some other format or whatever. And so I was just really happy that we were able to work that deal. And we are still in the very early stages of sort of the implementation and bringing the two together. But I'm excited about it. And I've been sort of saying, my vision here is, we are now in a position to serve not only the head, but the heart and the spirit. Because an appetite of just news and information, that can be a tough diet right now. And so to be able to now have that 1-2 punch of having the NPR news and information station, and then having an NPR affiliated AAA music discovery station, again, that helps to serve the entire person, the whole person, I think is really, really good. And so my vision is to continue to grow both of those formats in such a way that we are every single day finding more and more ways to be more relevant and more essential in more aspects of the lives of more people here in Baltimore. And that could mean lots of things going forward as we think about some of our other future plans. But it really means spreading our brand of public media as far and wide as we can, and doing so in a way that's going to be impactful for the Baltimore community. I think everybody wants to live in a community that knows how to celebrate and uplift local musicians and artists. I think everybody wants to live in a community where they have reliable sources of news and information. Everybody wants to live in a community where diverse perspectives are not only welcomed, but they're lifted up. Where storytelling and perspectives and podcasting and all of these things. And so I think that's a bit of a glimpse into my vision and the future for your public radio, for what we're doing here now, sort of having both the NPR news station and the NPR AAA music discovery station, WTMB. And I'd just say, keep tuned. I think we've got some other exciting things on the horizon that we're working on.
Love to hear it. The future is bright. So now I'm going to get into the rapid fire. Those are the end of the real, I should have a tie on for this kind of questions. So these rapid fire questions, these are essentially, you can answer them just straight answer, or you can provide any additional context. If you really want to get into the context, you can, but really it's just, look, I said what I said. All right. So first question, what was your first job?
My first job, and a lot of folks don't know this, was actually as an actor. I'm a bit of a theater kid, and so I literally grew up in the theater. So my first job was actually as a paid performer.
Wow. Well, I'll be.
Yeah.
With the success and all I touched on earlier, what is your golden rule to business?
So I have a few of them, sure, but I'm going to say my top one, I call them the banner basics, meaning beat them at the basics. The glitz and the glam of all of this specialty stuff. There's a place for that, but there's something to be said about getting the basics right. And getting them right consistently, wow folks with the basics, deliver on the promise of whatever you say that you're going to deliver as a business, as an organization. Figure out what the basics are and beat your competition at the basics. Be the best at those basics, and by doing so, you will become special. You will set yourself apart by simply delivering on the basics.
Gems right there. Gems. Got a couple more. This one has to do something I was researching on Twitter. I went a little further back on this one. Favorite PBS programming as a kid?
Wow. So again, a tough one, because I have a lot of them. And I think what you're probably alluding to is some stuff in my past as a performer. So I actually, performed on some PBS shows. I even hosted a PBS show. And so one of my favorites was a program called Reading Between the Lines. And I actually had a recurring role in that as a childhood performer. But not only did I love performing in the program, but it was one of my favorite PBS shows to watch.
Wonderful. I've noticed you're an accessories guy. Socks or ties? Which one you got? Which one's your go-to?
Ties all day, every day, ties.
All right, last three. What is your most commonly used emoji?
I'm actually not a big user of emoji, but it's probably this right here, the brown thumbs up.
Well, that's a whole personality type. Mine is just being impromptu black thumbs down. It's just I don't know. What is one of your nicknames?
So yeah, I have a bunch of nicknames actually, and I would say, for folks that know me well, probably LA or La is one of my nicknames, one of the more common nicknames.
That's pretty crisp. Last one. What was your last Google search?
Wow, what was my last Google search? I have no clue, but I do a lot of Google searching, and so it was something earlier today for work, and I don't know. I'm trying to think, what was that? Yeah, I don't know. I can't recall what it was, but it had something to do with radio. I'll tell you that.
I always think about that question because I recently started adding in these rapid fire questions, and someone was like, "Oh, I Googled myself to see if I was actually famous yet." I was like, "Wow,
okay."
I mean, we could all aspire. So that's all that I have, but I want to invite you to tell the fine folks about the website and social media just to kind of stay up on the happenings, because it's a lot coming. It's a lot that's happening, and the vision is it's a living, breathing thing, and it's in play. So can you illuminate us on where to check out all of the happenings with what you're doing and with public radio?
Yeah. So our websites, WYPR.org, WTMD.org. You can find both of the stations' various social media accounts by just checking out those websites. You can check me. My social media channel of choice is Twitter, so you can catch me there at LaFontaine_O, I believe is how you can get me there. And just keep a lookout. We just launched a new sort of corporate website, yourpublic.org, which is the first time the two iconic brands, WYPR and WTMD are featured for the first time side by side, and we'll be building that out with some information about our future. And just a quick plug, WYPR is going to be celebrating its 20th anniversary next year. And so we are working on some exciting plans, activities, events, special programming, lots of cool stuff coming up. So be on the lookout for that. And you can get more information coming up at either WYPR.org or yourpublic.org. So
thank you so much. This has been everything I hoped it would be. So I'm going to wrap up there. So for the great LaFontaine Oliver, I am Rob Lee saying that there is radio in and around your city. You just got to look for it.